Hello everyone, and welcome to the Antarctic continent, which surrounds the South Pole. This continent, 40% larger than Europe, is completely covered in ice. Here, seals, whales, penguins, and of course, researchers live. However, hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica lies a dark secret. On this massive ice sheet rests the Thwaites Glacier, which spans 120 kilometers in width. Also known as the Doomsday Glacier, the melting of this glacier could lead to catastrophic global sea level rises. What's alarming is that the Doomsday Glacier is melting rapidly, releasing 50 billion tons of ice into the ocean every year. So far, it is responsible for 4% of the 23 centimeters of sea level rise that has already occurred. Some scientists predict that the glacier could melt within decades rather than centuries. In fact, not even decades, but much sooner. Now, we will show you what would happen if the Thwaites Glacier were to melt suddenly. Yes, the Doomsday Glacier will melt within seconds. And there it goes. Thwaites has melted, its waters flowing into the Southern Ocean, then spreading into the Indian, Atlantic, and Pacific Oceans. Global sea levels have risen by 60 centimeters. The streets of San Francisco are underwater, and so are Miami and New Orleans. So, how did this happen? Why did the glacier collapse so suddenly? In fact, a hidden process is unfolding beneath the ice. Underneath Thwaites lies a massive, fast-flowing river. This river is fed by meltwater from the ice and geothermal energy rising from the Earth's molten inner layers. This energy melts the base of the glacier, forming the river. The melting process starts slowly, but eventually large chunks of ice break off, triggering a chain reaction that leads to even more ice melting. Beneath Antarctica's ice lies a hidden world. But before we take you to that fascinating underground world, let's explain why Antarctica is so important. Antarctica is covered by a massive ice sheet with an average thickness of over 2 kilometers, spanning an area of 14 million square kilometers. To put that into perspective, this area is about 1.5 times the size of the United States. This immense ice mass contains 25 million cubic kilometers of ice, which accounts for 90% of all the ice on Earth and 60% of the planet's fresh water. In the Arctic, ice floats on water, but in Antarctica, there is land beneath the ice. Since 98% of this landmass is covered by ice, we usually cannot see it. In fact, even a 1.5 million square kilometer ocean area is hidden beneath this ice. When all this ice melts, the sea level will rise by a staggering 70 meters. We'll see how this massive melting will change the world in a moment. But first, let's talk about what's hidden beneath this ice, because this is just as concerning as the melting itself. For thousands, even millions of years, ancient microbes and viruses have been trapped beneath the ice, and they could be released. This poses a risk of unknown diseases spreading across the world. Our modern immune systems may have no defense against these ancient pathogens. Since we've never encountered these microbes before, our immune systems might have little to no defense against these ancient threats. Therefore, infections could spread rapidly, and we may need advanced medical treatments to control them. In some cases, high doses of antibiotics or controlled-release medications may be required to combat long-term illnesses. Now, let's take a look at the strange creatures waiting for us beneath this frozen landscape. As we explore this undiscovered region, let's first descend to the ocean floor. Just above us, we'll see the underside of the ice, and here, a type of marine creature called anemone lives. These small creatures are trapped beneath the ice. You might also spot small fish and crustaceans here, but look closely because the anemones here are not like the ones you're used to. They have an unusual characteristic, being a new species. Normally, sea anemones live attached to a single point, much like plants, but these Antarctic anemones move freely in the water. Scientists are still trying to understand where these anemones are trying to go. So, in this cold and dark environment where almost nothing grows, what do these creatures feed on? They are likely sustained by small plankton pieces and waste carried by ocean currents, but they also feed on something stranger and a bit disgusting: the ocean version of decaying food from the back of your fridge. These creatures consume the decaying skeletons, bodies, and ancient bacteria of organisms that lived millions of years ago when the Earth was much warmer. Now, let's continue with our disaster scenario. A few more massive glaciers are about to break off. As the glaciers near Thwaites separate and melt, more water is released into the oceans, causing sea levels worldwide to rise by an additional 2.5 meters. Cities on the eastern coast of the United States are submerged. Boston, New York, Miami. Millions of people are affected. While cities are drowning, something strange is happening along the coasts of Antarctica. Near the glacier, sea levels are dropping, while in distant areas, sea levels are rising. So how is this possible? Remember, the Antarctic ice sheet is incredibly massive, weighing 24 billion megatons. This enormous mass exerts its own gravitational force on the surrounding waters, which causes the nearby sea levels to rise. However, when the ice melts, this gravitational force disappears. As a result, sea levels decrease near the ice sheet while they rise in other areas. Next, another glacier, the Denmark and Scots glaciers at the eastern tip of Antarctica, will also melt, adding another 1.5 meters of water to the oceans. With a total rise of 4 meters, the United States loses its significant monuments. The Jefferson Memorial and Fenway Park are submerged. Additionally, major coastal cities worldwide are engulfed. Shanghai, Lagos, Mumbai, Jakarta, ports vanish. All this salty water floods agricultural lands, ruining crops. Even worse, underground freshwater sources that supply drinking water become contaminated with salt water from the ocean. Moreover, the threat isn't just salt water. Antarctic ice also contains harmful bacteria. Some of these bacteria cause infections and are linked to diseases like cystic fibrosis. Furthermore, they are resistant to the antibiotics we use today. If these bacteria exchange genes with the bacteria on our planet, the number of antibiotic-resistant bacteria could increase rapidly. This makes it much harder to fight bacterial infections. In short, it's a great danger to humanity. However, like every Hollywood villain, these bacteria might have a good side. They could help us develop new and more effective antibiotics, play a role in cleaning up toxic waste, and even offer a biological alternative to plastics. Now that the glaciers are melting, ecological balances are being disrupted. For example, the flow of ocean currents is changing. Before all this ice melted, water in the oceans moved in a certain pattern, with dense, salty water sinking to the ocean floor, while less dense water rose to the surface. This movement worked like a giant conveyor belt, carrying heat and nutrients. This system is vital for marine life. The fresh water coming from the melting glaciers makes the surface water in the oceans less salty and dense, which prevents the water from sinking deep into the ocean. It's as if the giant conveyor belt in the oceans is broken, and it can no longer transport heat to different parts of the world. Scientists are warning that the melting in the Arctic will negatively affect the warm Gulf Stream current. The exact impact of the melting of Antarctica's ice on our climate is still uncertain. According to some scenarios, if glaciers break off from Antarctica and melt in the Atlantic, changes in ocean currents could lead to a new ice age. However, if the melting primarily causes sea levels to rise, global temperatures could increase. But the concern isn't just temperature changes. The disruption of the ocean conveyor belt would also prevent nutrients from being transported from the ocean floor to the surface. These nutrients are crucial for the growth of phytoplankton, tiny algae that form the foundation of the ocean's food chain. Phytoplankton may seem small and insignificant, but they are the cornerstone of marine life, providing essential nutrients to sea creatures. For phytoplankton in Antarctic waters, melting ice could be an opportunity, as the iron released from the melting ice is a rich food source for them. In fact, the nutrients trapped beneath the ice could mix into the water, potentially triggering a massive phytoplankton bloom. The proliferation of phytoplankton could be good news because these tiny organisms absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which the Earth desperately needs. Why? Because the melting of all this ice will make the planet much hotter for several reasons. First, the ice surface helps keep the Earth cool by reflecting sunlight. However, when the ice melts, it is replaced by dark-colored ocean water, which absorbs more sunlight and heats up, accelerating global warming. Moreover, as glaciers melt and oceans warm, the activity of microscopic fungi in the water increases. Similar to the decay of dead leaves in forests, these fungi break down dead organic matter in the oceans, releasing carbon dioxide. Warmer oceans mean more decay and more carbon dioxide emissions. Furthermore, the melting ice creates a freshwater layer over the salty ocean water, reducing the ocean's ability to absorb carbon dioxide from the air and accelerating global warming even further. Now, the rest of Antarctica is rapidly breaking apart and melting, with waters from the melting ice flowing into the oceans. As the ice melts, a natural wonder that has been hidden for millions of years is emerging. In fact, the nutrients trapped under the ice could mix with the water, potentially causing a massive bloom. The proliferation of phytoplankton could be good news because these tiny organisms absorb carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and the world will desperately need this. Why? Because all this melting ice will make the planet much warmer for several reasons. First, the ice surface helps keep the Earth cool by reflecting sunlight. But when the ice melts, it is replaced by dark ocean water that absorbs more sunlight and warms up, accelerating global warming. Additionally, as glaciers melt and oceans warm, the activity of microscopic fungi in the water increases, much like the decay of dead leaves in forests. These fungi break down dead matter in the ocean, releasing carbon dioxide. Warmer oceans mean more decay and more carbon dioxide emissions. Moreover, the melting glaciers create a layer of fresh water on top of the salty ocean water, which reduces the ability of the oceans to absorb carbon dioxide from the air, further accelerating global warming. Now, the rest of Antarctica is breaking apart into huge chunks and rapidly melting. The water from the melting ice flows into the oceans, and as the ice melts, a natural wonder that has been hidden for millions of years is revealed. The entire Atlantic coastline, including much of the United States, is submerged. People in 23-story skyscrapers desperately climb to the rooftops to survive. Some areas of California turn into small island clusters surrounded by water, while other parts of the state disappear completely beneath the waves. London, Paris, Venice, every major coastal city we knew is gone. Millions of people are left homeless, injured, and even losing their lives. As the water rises, those who jumped into their cars and fled to higher ground manage to survive, but they are the lucky ones. Governments are in a panic, running emergency operations. They know almost everyone on the coast has drowned, but maybe there is a way to rescue those trapped at the tops of the skyscrapers. However, with so many affected, are there enough helicopters to rescue them? Boats will also be needed for rescue operations. How will governments repair the collapsed infrastructure? More importantly, how will they cope with the sudden freshwater shortage? Freshwater sources are contaminated with salt water, making it difficult for people to find drinking water. Suddenly, lands far from the coast become valuable, and those living in mountainous areas find themselves in a lucky position. Although they are no longer part of the rich coastal elite, they now possess the most valuable land. These cities have never appeared so attractive. Countries in the southern hemisphere are facing an even greater disaster. The entire country of Bangladesh, with a population of 160 million, is submerged. As countries beg for help, geopolitical tensions rise. However, the affected area is so vast that finding aid is incredibly difficult. With all the glaciers melted, it's time for the permafrost, which has been frozen at the poles for over 40,000 years, to begin thawing. As the permafrost thaws, it releases the carbon dioxide and methane trapped inside, which accelerates global warming and causes the permafrost to melt even faster. The thawing of permafrost can be compared to putting frozen food in a microwave. Small organisms start eating the newly thawed old organic matter. In the meantime, microorganisms release carbon dioxide and methane gas, which further contribute to global warming. So, the gas emissions from microorganisms cause the air to warm even more. Could it get even worse? Yes, it could. The frozen DNA viruses in the permafrost could thaw and lead to a global epidemic. Developing a vaccine in the midst of this disaster would be incredibly difficult, especially when the weather is extremely hot. The world is now 5 to 10 degrees hotter, and this temperature increase caused the entire ice sheet to melt. Now this melting is further heating the atmosphere. As the average temperature on Earth approaches 27 degrees, people begin migrating en masse. The most popular destinations? Canada, Alaska, and the newly emerging Arctic and Antarctic regions. These places are becoming the new tropical paradises. 34 million years ago, Antarctica was a temperate rainforest like New Zealand, so perhaps history repeats itself. Palm trees along the coasts of Antarctica, and crocodiles swimming in the warm Southern Ocean. Who knows? Fortunately, Antarctica doesn't melt in minutes, but while coastal cities are submerged and 3 billion people perish, the contamination of underground water, the intensification of global warming, and the potential for an epidemic form a grim scenario. So, what do you think about the melting of glaciers? Could this scenario unfold within the next 10 years? We look forward to your comments. See you soon.